I'm Arjuman Samuel from Microsoft, and I lead security for Azure IoT. Uh, and today I'm going to talk about this extremely important question. Is your IoT infrastructure secure? Or if you're working with a customer or partner, is their IoT infrastructure secure or not? So I'm going to talk about this. Uh, I'm not, first of all, give you some context. So what is it that we try to secure, the product, quickly. But then I want to go a little bit deeper in terms of what we are doing with the community, with the people who are involved in a number of different programs to make sure that our customers are secure. So that's the plan here. If you have any questions, any comments, just, get my attention, and we should talk about that. So this is not just a one-way, this is a two-way conversation. Right? So let's go a little bit deeper into what I mean by that. We have, and we are seeing, this whole transformation happening in terms of organizations and businesses moving from being traditional businesses with widgets, with physical things that they did, to being software businesses. And that's really what started us thinking about what does really IoT mean. This here is one example. This is one of our partners, customers, Thyssen Krupp. They have 1.5 million elevators around the world. The model that they had been operating for the last 60, 70 years was you are putting up a building, somebody will show up in a suit, Thyssen Krupp. They'll try to sell you an elevator, and you'll buy that elevator, you'll put it in your building, and then you'll do an yearly contract, and then whenever it fails, or every year or so, somebody will come in with oil and will maintain the thing, and you'll hope that it works day in, day out. If it doesn't, you call somebody, and they send out somebody in 2-3 days, and for those 2 or 3 days, you always had the stairs on the side, and you could always use that, or you had not 1, but 2, 3, 4 elevators, so you had redundancy in your system, and people could use that. Now, that model was not at all acceptable to the industry which Thyssen Krupp was serving, the buildings, right? They said, this is not on. We don't want to wait for 3 days for a Jeep or a van to show up with tools, right? So Thyssen Krupp came to us, told us about this pressure on their business, that they have to change, they have to adapt. So the one thing they could do, of course, is to augment their elevators with a bunch of sensors, a bunch of devices, put a gateway with some connectivity, collect a bunch of data, bring it to somewhere like this control center, and monitor, do remote monitoring. So the elevator, when it would go down, meaning it would not work, you'll ask for it, it would not come to you. You will know that the elevator is not working. Thyssen Krupp would know, and they'll send out somebody. But that was just the start, right? And that was really not a true transformation. The true transformation was when you're collecting a bunch of data from theoretically billions or millions of elevators, bringing all of the data together, training a machine learning algorithm in the cloud, and then predicting when a certain bearing would actually fail, when a certain motor would actually fail, and then sending a crew down before it fails to replace the thing. So that's really a transformation, where your downtime became almost zero. There was almost no downtime. And the business model then changed on Thyssen Krupp. They're no longer in the business of selling elevators. They're in the business of selling rides. Right? So the building owner would simply do a contract. You need to put in some machinery, I don't care what, happens to be an elevator, which should take my people from floor to floor. And I'll count, or you will count the number of rides, and I'll only pay you by the ride. Right? And so now it is more a service that Thyssen Krupp provides to their building owners rather than a machine. So that's really a transformation. All possible because now you could deploy Internet of Things devices all over the place, collect all of this data, throw some heavyweight machine learning algorithms on top of it, and then do some predictions. And we believe that's just the start. That's just the start where we are going here. So This is just the background of one of our customers. There are a bunch of others as well. Some are here. If you go to, I'll give you some URLs along the way. If you go there, there are a bunch of case studies in different verticals, different types of industries where all that transformation is happening. But that's just to give you an idea in terms of how we see that transformation happening, because within that transformation, I'm rightly assuming we all are interested in security. Within that transformation, there is this huge elephant in the room sitting there, which is asking the question, oh, what about security? What about my devices being hijacked by other people? And what about happens to your business when that bad thing happens, right? So that elephant in the room, we're going to come to it. Just to give you an overview of what we do, we have this product called Azure IoT Suite, which really is an end-to-end service as well as client-side SDKs or libraries, which you can actually implement on your devices. So we are cross-platform. You bring a device. If it has a, I like to call it heartbeat, but it's really a CPU and memory and power and network. If it has that, you can actually deploy one of our libraries. We have that in multiple languages, C, Python, Java, you name it, we have it. And you deploy it on the devices, and then the devices talk to the cloud. Those are the devices which go on elevators or any of the devices. By the way, that example I gave about that elevator, if you think about it, if you replace that elevator with your toaster, if you replace that elevator with your washing machine, it is mind-boggling. Imagine that then somebody would actually sell you number of toasts that you toast or number of clothes that you wash, and not a washing machine and not a toaster. All of these widgets would become services which we all would buy. So that's just a side thought. Now, this is our service. We have this Azure IoT Hub in the middle, which connects to your existing business systems. If you have a SAP system, Oracle system, whatever, we have an API layer which you can get data out. From the devices, you can pump in a bunch of data. We are scalable, so millions of devices sending millions of data points or messages, as we call them, up to the cloud. And then you can also control it, so it's two-way. So this service is IoT Hub. I'll give you some links there. But then this is where it starts getting interesting, right? What is our thinking in terms of security? I believe it is the thinking that we have in the industry. We are following some of the best practices, best standards out there, and then trying to bring them to this world of IoT, right? The cloud over here is Azure Cloud, which is the most widely deployed cloud infrastructure in the world. So it is in so many regions, 30 or so. There's a number somewhere there. Every other day it changes, so I can't keep track of it. And then we have this whole workloads, different kinds of workloads which you can actually deploy onto our cloud. And then to make that connectivity happen, we rely on the known industry standards like TLS-based authentication for mutual authentication between the device and the cloud. We have access control, which is policy-based. We have a bunch of different services in the cloud which offer you some kind of security in different ways. So that whole package together gives you security for end-to-end. But I would actually say over here that really that is our cloud part of how we look at it. There is more to it. There is much more to it. IoT security is not only solved when the cloud is secure. While we are secure, we stand by Azure and we say that that is the most secure cloud in the world. IoT security end-to-end is not solved that way. So how is it solved? Let's not forget this. I'm sure we all remember this interesting thing that happened 2-3 months back. I won't go into the details of this attack, Mirai. You can all look up if you want to go back to it. But I'll just mention 2 points here. One, I haven't seen a mass recall of devices so far. Those devices are probably still in my home. And that whole framework is open sourced, which means anybody can pick it up and start playing around with it again. So I'll just leave those 2 thoughts there, and I'll move on to a group of different things. So I'll talk about security by design. What do we recommend when you're designing your IoT infrastructure? I'm going to talk about how we are involving the whole ecosystem, the community of security experts into this. The first thing we do is we looked at our STRIDE model, which has been out there for about 10 to 15 years. It's a threat modeling model, right? So it allows you to reason to threats. One, define threats, and then reason to it. It was originally created for the IT domain. So it was originally created for that about 10 years or so back. And what we have done is we have adapted it to IoT, to whatever level we can adapt it. And then we are extending it further. And you'll hear what I have to say further on. So that this is a URL where you can actually get the tool, which is a free tool. It's platform agnostic. No matter what platform you have and whatever you're planning to deploy on, you can actually use this tool. It also has a case study which walks you through a bunch of different threats that we see out there in IoT and then how to actually mitigate those threats. Now, as I said, security for IoT is not only the cloud, right? I can secure my cloud as much as I want, but if my device at the edge, the silicon on the edge, is not secure, it really doesn't, in a sense, matter, right? Because that device could be poisoning my data. That device could actually be used to do pretty bad things. Similarly, if there is a gateway somewhere in the middle, same thing applies there. So we really have to think about this whole IoT business end to end. And for me to say that my cloud is the most secure cloud is good, but it's not sufficient. Right? It's not sufficient. So we took that view, we stepped back and we took that view, and we said that what we need to do is we need to work with different people who are involved in the design, development, and deployment of IoT infrastructure, and have some kind of best practices out there. Have some kind of, if you do this, then it would become a little bit more secure. So these are the different roles, as we like to call them, that we started thinking about. For example, there's a hardware manufacturer, right? Just to give you an example, for a hardware manufacturer, we'll tell them, hey, by the way, if you are designing your device, it does not need a USB drive interface, please don't put it in. Because what you're doing is you're adding another attack vector to your device. If you are deploying and manufacturing a device and deploying it in a public place, make it tamper-proof. There are ways to do that, right? So those are the very basic common sense best practices we started working with our partners who do all of these different things. Operators usually we found, are hardest to work with because at times they are not the IT people, they are the people who manage machines, better known as OT, operational technology. And for them, when we go and talk to them about cyber attacks, it is like a different language, right? They say, no, I don't know what you're saying. For me, it's the availability of the machine, it is the reliability of the machine, and perhaps the safety. And I also think about environmental impact of the machine if I'm a little bit sophisticated device machine manufacturer, right? These are the things I think of. I don't think of anything else. And now an IT guy comes in and he says, what is reliability of a machine? Why are you thinking about the environmental impact? Have you thought about authentication and authorization, and which is, by the way, a different language to the OT guy, right? They don't understand each other. So then we started working with these operators, and we started telling them about best practices to run an IoT infrastructure in their language. Right? The goal, again, is end-to-end. Everybody involved in this game of securing IoT should actually know what to do, what they need to do. So that's something that we did. And finally, my last thing that I like to talk about is something that we heard from our customers. So we went out. ThyssenKrupp was one example, but there are a bunch of others. Some of them pretty big. They're talking about millions of devices around the world, IoT devices around the world. And they came back and they said, great, you guys have convinced me to transform my business. And I'm going to do that. Rather than being a trucking business or an elevator business, I'm now going to become a software business. Great. But can you tell me what my security risks are here? Right? What are the additional attack surfaces my business is now opening up? And so that was the question that came up. A little bit more details here. Risk is one. What happens if that I cannot manage that risk? Who will manage it? And then, of course, they came to us and said, who can actually evaluate this IoT infrastructure? Can you do it? I said, yeah, but I'm a cloud provider and there's a silicon in here which I seriously don't understand how and where you got it from. There might be an operating system which I don't know anything about. And so what we did was, we again took a step back And we looked for experts in these areas, in this whole end-to-end IoT infrastructure. There are people out there who do excellent work in threat modeling, as an example. There are companies, experts out there who do excellent work in packet analysis, deep packet analysis. There are people who do silicon analysis, right? So what we did was we came up with this idea of putting them together as a curated list of experts, which we talk to, we understand what they understand what the customers do, and we put them all together. And our goal is that they help our customers evaluate their risk, right? So we essentially are the matchmakers. We go in, we look at who are the experts in the different areas required for IoT, and we talk to customers, and we kind of understand what they're looking for, and then we say, okay, guys, why don't you talk to each other, right? And perhaps you can come up with something that you can work together. So essentially, the security program is that. I'll actually give you a URL to that. The goal is not just to come up with risks, but also to come up with strategies to deal with that risk. If an organization, an elevator maker, as an example, doesn't know what all of that cyber attack surface means, it's these guys who will go in and talk to them and tell them that these are the different things you need to do, something actionable, right? So many of these things, and there is a long list, this is just an example, end-to-end IoT infrastructure, right? It is not only cyber, it is also physical. What happens when there is an environmental impact on your physical infrastructure? What should you do? What is the risk that you're taking there? And what are the evaluation strategies that you should have to take care of that risk? So we are a matchmaker here. I'll actually talk about, and some of them are here as well. I'll talk about how that program is now forming. And I also would talk about what you can do if you want to come and help us with this thing. So we started very small. There were like a few, 3 or 4 founding members to this program. And now we have this list. They all specialize in very unique areas, very specialized niche areas. Some of them go across. Some of them are deep in areas in IoT. But all of them work in some form of IoT security, right? And the URL is over here. So what we are actually looking for, one, if your company is thinking of coming in and joining this, one, it has to be an IoT focus. It can be cyber, but it also has to be a little bit related to the physical infrastructure. And these two have to come together. That's one. We are also looking for specialization in some areas, right? There are people who, as I said, specialize in silicon analysis, so there are specializations which we are looking for. We're also looking for verticals, right? There are evaluators who specialize in critical infrastructure. And then there are evaluators who specialize in healthcare, as an example. So we are looking for that. And of course, lastly, we're looking for geographic coverage. If our customer, and we have customers all over the world, if they are in, I don't know, South America somewhere, we need to have somebody who can actually go in there and do this evaluation. So if you are interested to join in, there is a URL up there, which is ak.ms IoT security partner. There is a little bit of a, kind of a FAQ, which tells you what this program is about. There's an email. There you can apply over it, and then we'll evaluate, and then we'll come back, and we'll say, yeah, welcome to the program, in most cases. So this is the security program. Now, we did realize that in order for these evaluators to go in and do these evaluations, we need a common set of vocabulary, right? We need some way a framework for people to go in and for people to evaluate on a common set of standards, right? And we did some analysis. There are a bunch of cybersecurity standards out there, the maturity models out there, but they all are very specialized to their areas, but none of them actually go end-to-end to IoT infrastructure. So we and our partners, we thought that this is an opportunity to actually make that happen. So we are now working with IIC, which is the Industrial Internet Consortium, which is under OMG. We have a working group there. We are working on a standard, which we are hoping would be the first in the world to actually talk about IoT infrastructure security end-to-end. And not just that, it would talk about how to evaluate that IoT infrastructure. Not just that, but also to provide you with some kind of maturity models. Right? When you are looking at an IoT infrastructure, if you have a sensor which is your home-based sensor, a temperature sensor, you probably can do a simple encryption scheme there and you're fine. But if you take that same sensor and deploy it in a nuclear plant or a critical infrastructure, you better think about authentication and all of those fun things, right? So essentially, there is this notion of maturity here, of how sophisticated is your security technology and how is it related to different scenarios and verticals. So this document, we are hoping, would actually become that. It would provide actionable maturity model to our customers and to our evaluators. When they go and talk to our customers, they'll have a common vocabulary, common language. They will talk about, okay, let's talk about authentication. Which maturity level are you? Level 1, and your scenario should be really level 2. And these are the different things you need to do to go up to level 2. So that's our goal here. We are working with IIC, which is an ongoing activity. It's a team, large team of different companies. We got together, and we are now making it happen. Which brings me towards the end. Wow, 20 minutes. So there is a white paper over there, iotaka.ms/IoT ground up. Or you could search over there, Internet of Your Things. That's another site which takes you to a bunch of our case studies, bunch of our material in terms of security, white papers, some best practices. All of those would be available over here. So we are hoping that if you are thinking about doing something concrete for IoT security, which as a community we all should be, then there is some interest in becoming part of this program. That's one. Secondly, if you are interested or part of IIC somehow, then maybe there is a natural collaboration we should anyway be talking about. There are also people who are already associated with this program right here. So if you talk around, you'll find them here. One thing I need to say is this little clock. There is a survey happening over there. If you go there and take that survey, everybody gets this clock, right? Just a survey, and this is a nice digital thing that you could put somewhere. So with that, thank you very much. If you have questions, I'm here, and we could talk about things related to this. Thank you.